We are moving on to our next tutorial. We'll be learning how to do some photo editing, which is Photoshop's strongest suit. To begin, you're going to need to get some images. We have a few images here that you're going to have to download. Each of them will open up in a separate window. The window will look like this, and you're going to need to click on the download image. If you right click and save this, it's going to save a low res version. We want to make sure that we have a full high res version. We're going to download that, and we're going to put that file, once we've done all four of these, we're going to put them in a new folder. So in your name folder under Photoshop, you're going to create a new folder called source images, and these images are going to get saved in there. Once you're working on your PSDs and your Photoshop documents, they will get saved in your Photoshop folder, but source images, the images you start with, get saved here. This is the first one we're going to do, and we're going to start with learning a couple of new tools. So first of all, let's just take a quick look. We're going to reset our workspace, essentials, reset essentials. That's going to put back everything where we want it to be so that your interface looks like mine. From here, we're going to basically be using the images that we see here to duplicate a part of the image. So the first tool we're going to use is called the clone stamp tool, or sometimes referred to as the rubber stamp tool. We're going to click on that tool. And if you just click anywhere on the screen, you're going to get an error. That error says that you have not defined a source point. A source point means where are you taking from before you copy your image. So I'm going to click OK. And to define a source, in fact, it tells you right here to define a source, option click to define a source point. Excuse me. So I'm going to go on my keyboard, I'm going to hold option, and I'm going to, well, as soon as you hold option, you see that you get a target. I'm going to put my cursor over top of one of these birds, or the one in the middle here, and holding option, I'm going to click. Once I do that, I'm going to see that there's like a little graphic that shows here. It's hard to see because it's so small. So we're going to bring our brush size up. Okay, and now what you can see is what we were actually looking at there is the source that we defined being held kind of in our window here, or in our cursor. If I start drawing, what you'll see is it's going to continue to draw from where I started my selection, okay, this source point that I defined, to where I'm now drawing. And so what's happening is it basically, you can see there's a target at the bottom, on the bottom wire, and that is drawing my new image over top of my old one. Okay, and so you saw there was a target here, and what's happening is it's drawing onto a new place where I was drawing from. Okay, that's fine, it works fine, but it's not not the effect I wanted. So let's go back to my history. We're going to go back a step to before the clone stamp. Close that up. All right, what I want to do is I want to take this bird here and have it sitting on a wire over here. So I'm going to define my source. Okay, so I'm going to hold option on my keyboard and click again on the bird. And we're going to zoom in a little bit, Command plus, just so I can see better what I'm doing. I'm going to hold space bar on my keyboard and move over just so I have a bit of space. All right, now what I'm trying to do is put this bird here on the wire, but I need to be a little bit careful about how I do this. If I'm off by a little bit, notice what happens. It kind of doesn't align very well, and you can sort of see where things don't quite look right. Command Z, I'm going to undo that, and back to my stamp tool. I'm going to take my selection by clicking wherever I'm going to click. So I'm going to maybe get right on right on the line. You can kind of see just here, there's like a little piece of his kind of foot sticking out. I'm going to use that as my starting point. So back to my stamp tool option. I'm going to put my target right over top of that point right here and click. Then I'm going to bring my cursor over here. Now my cursor is actually too big. I don't need it to be so big because otherwise it's going to take more information than I need. And the problem with that, and I'll do this incorrectly just so you can see what I mean, when I start drawing with this, because the background color behind this bird over here is slightly lighter in the sky than it is over here, you're starting to see a little bit of that kind of round shape that's happening because the color change is a little bit more drastic than I want it to be. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to do the same thing, but with a slightly smaller brush. Now, this is kind of finicky, and the better you get at this software and the more kind of picky you get with your work, the better this will be. But I'm going to bring my cursor size down. So this is the same as using a brush. I'm going to use the square bracket on my keyboard, which will make it smaller or bigger. Okay, I'm gonna get smaller, and you can also get that from here. And I'm also gonna bring the hardness down from 0 to about 30%. Okay, that's gonna give me kind of slightly harder edges. I want to align my kind of that wire there so it's in the right spot. And then I'm just gonna kind of carefully select around this bird. Okay, and then that's gonna look pretty good. And if I feel like I'm still, you can see here, I'm getting that kind of glow. So now what I might do is go a larger brush, not that large, maybe 500. Okay, and then I'm going to set the opacity of this brush to 50%. And what that's going to do is it's going to do the same thing that we were doing previously. Okay, so again, I'm going to select my source, and I'm going to align this over top so that my bird lines up. And I'm just going to kind of go around this area, blending in a little bit of what I'm getting in the background. That's just going to blend a little bit of that background in, kind of picking up the color from over here, kind of around there, and blending it in a little bit better. It looks a bit more realistic. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, actually, and you can still see there's like a bit of a glow here. So I may go back to that again, and one more time, I'm going to start here. I'm going to click here to get that exactly where I want it. And you can notice like actually, I missed a bit there. Let me zoom in a bit. You can see I've got to be really exact, otherwise things don't line up properly. So I want to put this right here. Okay, so I've got that exactly where I want it now. And now I'm going to draw my new bird. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And then I'm going to continue just making that kind of light around the bird just a little bit better at blending in what's around there. May make my brush a little bigger again and continue. I'm going to bring my opacity down by pressing 2 on my keyboard, which is going to bring my opacity of the tool. 3 is 30, 4 is 40, 5 is 50. I'm doing that on my keyboard. While I have the tool selected, if I change the number by hitting the keypad 7, 5, 3, it'll change how harsh or how effective this is. So I'm going to bring it down to 20%, and then just sort of go over this. And that 20% is just kind of going a little bit over what's happening here to blend the colors. Okay, Command 0 back down to my final, and then if we go back to our history, we can see the finished product looks a bit like that. Okay, now what we've completed here is pretty good. We're pretty happy with that, but that bird is now stuck in that area. We can't move it because it's on the same layer. We're going to quickly take a look at how we can do that a little more effectively without having it locked in the same position. So we're going to create a new layer. And then from there, we're going to go back to this tool, and we're going to do a very similar thing to what we did. Let's zoom back in. We're going to take the stamp tool, clone stamp tool. I'm going to make a bit of a smaller brush here, and I'm going to click on this bird here to set my source. And it's kind of the same thing we did, but we're going to make a change to one of the settings. So if you remember, the settings for the tool show up here. I'm going to change this. Right now it says current and below, current layer and all layers. So you have some options here. We want to make sure that we are on current and below. What that means is I can take from, because I created a new layer, I can take from this layer and paint onto this layer. Okay, and what that means is I will start drawing here, and you'll see it once I do it. I'm just going to draw in my bird here. Oh, I should bring my opacity back up to 0. If I click 0 on my number pad, it's going to turn that back to 100%. Okay, I'm going to align my bird and then start drawing. Okay, so there's my new bird, but notice what happened. This is on its own layer. So as much as that bird now is in the right position, if I need to move it, I can change to my move tool, and I can pick this layer up because this is my active layer, and I can put him wherever I want. I can decide if I want to have him right there. I have the ability, because it's on a separate layer, to kind of flexibly move things around. Okay, and so that is how this tool works. And once you're done with that, once you're happy with your final work, we're going to crop this. I'm going to click on the crop tool up here and drag this down and this up. And then once we're finished with it, we're going to hit done. We're going to export. We'll save this file. So we're going to go File, Save As. Okay, we're going to give it a name. We don't want to JPEG. We want to save it as a PSD. So make sure that we have PSD selected here. We're going to give it a name and go to our desktop, go to our named folder. And then in Photoshop, we're going to name this birds-1, and we're going to keep .psd on the end of the file. We need to have that file name there so that file type there, so that it saves it properly. Okay, make sure that Photoshop is selected and hit save. Okay with that one, and then we're going to export file, export. We're going to export as a PNG, and we're going to hit export there. Save it in the same spot, desktop, temp, named folder, Photoshop, and then we're going to save it in here. This is going to be called a PNG, so we don't need this. Export, and once we're done, in our named folder, we should see put that in the wrong spot. I'm going to put that there. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of this PSD. It added that by accident. Okay, and I want to keep that PNG as my name. Okay, that's your first activity. Save that, put that up on Wix, and then move on to the next activity.